Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Rob Turley, your host at Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. Today I have a very special guest, and it's rare that I have marketing professionals on here, so I'm excited to have this conversation. I have Dacia Coffee, who does things a little bit differently from others and used to work in the enterprise marketing world and then left because there are bigger, better things out there for bigger and better purposes. So she's a very purpose driven marketer, which is another rare thing as well, because most are not purpose driven. It's just about who can get the most engagement. And that's not really what it's about either. It's about measurable things, things that will actually make an impact. So, Dacia, if you don't mind, you can, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. I don't know that I can come up with a better introduction than that because it is an honor to be called a purpose-driven marketer. And I agree. I do hang my hat on that, and I want to be held accountable for that. So I love it. I, specifically work with B2B companies, and we get in the messy middle and we go straight to the deep end. We don't do the shallow stuff. We are really always trying to figure out the ways that we can help other human beings do good work and find their mastery and turn strangers into collaborators. Because honestly, that's really what business is about building this ecosystem of people that you would not normally engage with and creating more value than you represent by yourself. And that is exciting. And I love being a part of that. And then I get to work with so many interesting companies and interesting people where you think, wow, I didn't know there was a space for that. I had no idea that people do what you do. And I think that is so fun because it's just fun to follow your curiosity,
Right. Exactly. And so there are two things here that firing clients, it's one thing I wanted to talk to you with. So firing a client, even if we're an enterprise.
We are going straight to the deep.
Yeah, right. But then also the other part of this is not only just firing the client, but you say that business is personal and you take it personally. Yeah, of course, people take it personally, but there is a fine line there of business is not personal, but it is personal to you. But it shouldn't be taken personally. But it should have your personal touch. It should have your heart, your soul in it. Because I'll always like to say, because I have the same belief, but I like to say, your life isn't work, but your work is your life.
Yes. Yes. Well stated. I completely agree with how you just said that context, because two things that come up for me. First of all, in regards to work being your, part of your purpose and part of just what you should take personally, I don't think anyone can fulfill their potential, their real potential, just as a human being, as a naturally gifted, unique person that has different things than you do or I do. I don't think you can fulfill your potential if you don't take your work life incredibly seriously. And if you don't allow yourself to bring your whole heart and your whole mind and your whole point of view to work as well, right? Because you can never then infuse your output, the value that you bring to strangers, if you're not really putting your heart into it. But then on top of that, when you go home and you're frustrated or you feel empty or you feel like either you're giving nothing or you're a part of something that's not worthy, really, how can you find joy? How can you actually, love your weekend, love your life? You're just not going to. You're going to find things that help you erase or forget, the cumbersome nature of, your 8 to 5 or your 8 to 8 or your Monday through Friday or whatever it is, So that's a big deal, like on the individual side.
Right. If you wake up in the morning on Mondays and you're like, oh, Jesus, here we go. Like, that's a problem. It means your life is work.
Yes. There's your sign.
It's not that. That's not what you want. But your work should be your life, as I said. And that right there, I've had jobs where I've woken up like that. I was miserable, literally miserable.
Yeah, me too.
But It should be exciting. But now Mondays are my favorite day because everything kicks off. Everything starts. It all begins again, and it's like like a rebirth every single week, and it's a beautiful thing. Where if you're regretting your Monday, you should probably think about what you're doing.
100%. And, there was something else that you said that I was like, yes, so on point, where you said you shouldn't take things personally in work. And I agree, because that has a lot to do with if you are going like whole life, wholeheartedly into your work. you're going to grow as a professional and as a human being. And when you grow, you don't take things personally. Like you realize that you put it out there and maybe somebody said something stupid or another person didn't like it, or you got a little something wrong. You learned and you grow and you get stronger. And guess what? I'm a big believer that people are strong enough to handle that. And so handle it, people. Like get
It's
in.
the folks that take it as a personal attack where it's the issue, and it's difficult, especially in marketing. I come from a design background, and I was taught that since college, where it's like, do not take it personally, or it will eat
Yes.
you alive.
Yes.
You won't be able to do it. It's not a sustainable way to live. So it's a
No.
really fine line, and it's hard to understand how to actually make that split where you take it personally for personal growth, but you don't take it personally in a mental type of a way. It's not challenging your mental aptitude or your talent. It's challenging your process and your content.
Yes, exactly. And that is where you will find your best work is by being challenged. And that's a wonderful thing because then on top of that, not only do you produce something better, ironically, it helps you not be so centered in yourself, right? What do other people think about me? Did they like it? Were they mean to me? Am I understood? And instead, your work and your point of view ends up being about what can I do in this world? How can I better collaborate and connect with other people? How can I return the favor? How can I challenge other people and help them fulfill their potential? How do I serve? And that feels good. And that is why you get excited to wake up on Monday mornings,
Right, right.
right?
What
Because
impact
that's
do you leave
worthy.
behind? How have you changed people's lives? How have you touched somebody in some sort of way that's positive? Have you had good results? Did you leave a positive path moving forward? Have you helped someone attain their goals? That's all of what counts. It's not about um, you know, how you feel. It's not about your social aptitude, really. It's not about how much people like you. People don't have to like you. That's not the point. People have to love your work. They have to love working with you, being collaborative and really driving people to the future that they are going for. That's what's important.
I
And it's
agree.
it's so hard to see the difference between those two things because again, it's a fine line. And that's why don't take things personally, but take them to heart.
Well, and one thing you said just sparks a story, a personal story about me. And, in general, I really have been a people pleaser so much of my life. And that
Same.
is dangerous to your work. It's a blind spot that you sit in, right? I mean, it's not the kind of thing that one day you just wake up and you realize, like, oh, I'm a people pleaser. It's not terribly flattering, right? But the thing is, the interesting thing is that, having wonderful people in my life, my husband, friends that care about me enough to tell the truth, right? That propelled me. But my work and my work life and people propelled me further down that path of releasing the people pleasing because I've realized, the more that I've not taken things personally, I've also realized that it feels better to care more about what that person can accomplish if I tell them the truth, if I don't just tell them what they want to hear, if I want to give them constructive criticism, but be in it with them. That is actually more fulfilling and it's more honorable than just making somebody feel good for 30 seconds, but basically allowing them to continue down a path that's not terribly healthy, And so, having many and multiple aha moments at work about a piece of work, about, managing conflict, about a mistake that I might have made or someone else might have made, and deciding to get in it and just say the things that don't feel comfortable. My gosh, I mean, it's turning me into a better version of myself, one that can be better to myself and other people. And so, I know we could probably just talk about this all day, but I just had to add that because you just
Oh
like
yeah.
hit such a personal point for me where I'm like,
I mean, telling
yes,
people what they wanna hear is one thing, but I mean, how many times has that actually turned into something positive?
right.
In the end, really. It
That's
it
right.
has never helped, and I'm lucky that I learned at a young age what that means, what it does. So when I was about, maybe 19, that's when I stopped doing it. So I was that way in my early to late teens, and then right at the end, I was like, "What the hell am I doing?" Then I became far too direct. I don't know if there's such thing as that, but I'll just tell you exactly what's going on. And you lose friends that way. You will. You'll lose friends that way. You won't really make enemies because they're gonna wake up one day and go, "Oh shit, they were right." I've gotten phone calls 2 years later saying, hey, thanks for what you said, what you did, just because it finally clicks, but that's okay. If people aren't helping you grow and become the best version of yourself, you shouldn't be surrounding yourself with them.
That's right.
If you have to lie to ensure that you have a relationship, you also should not be around them. And it's
Completely.
like that with marketing as well. If you have to lie to your audience, you are not a good marketer. You're
No.
somebody who is lying to everybody. If you're doing that in advertising, you're lying to everybody. It should be total truth and transparency. Would you not agree?
Completely agree, because also the real goal of marketing and of business should be sustainable growth. Not, can I make a little bump right here? Can I hit my quarterly number? Can I do something today? Can I drive followers for now? Can I sell a few more things? The goal should be that when you layer on new marketing tactics, new product launches, new services, that customers love you because you told the truth, and that you have choreographed an amazing experience, and that you told the truth about the value you bring, and then you delivered on that. And so when you land a client, you keep them. So if you don't tell the truth, you simply won't keep them. And people's BS meter, in my opinion, is getting higher and higher and higher. Like, the world is so noisy. There's so much marketing. I mean,
Yeah, no one's going to put up with the shit anymore.
no, and they could smell it a mile away. So I really do think, the last couple decades have trained us to have a high level of skepticism around what's being said versus, what is being delivered and what's being acted upon. Now, we are all susceptible to subconscious messaging. Like, that is true. It doesn't matter how much of a skeptic you are, but it won't work forever. It'll only work for a second, and it will backfire on you, and faster than you can imagine. So
yeah, I mean, humans are evolving in the sense where naivety is not really present. I mean, the people who we sell to, at least, or we do business with how high level they are, there is no naivety, not a single naive bone in their body where they're not gonna even stand for anything that even ensues it to the slightest point. The second there's just a hint of it, they're out.
Yeah.
Or you have to try to build that trust again. You're starting back at square one or close to it.
Yep.
Taking 3-4 steps back. And then, if you fix it and you get them back on track, you're only taking 1 step forward. You're not going 2 steps back, taking 3 steps forward. You're taking 2-3 steps back and maybe 1 forward if you're lucky, if they didn't just drop you like a bad habit.
And, it's funny because in my agency, we talk about telling the truth early and often. And that has to do with data. Like, because we're human, and you can support, and you should be thinking about how technology can support your assumptions and your insights and, that type of thing. However, sometimes the best way to bust an assumption is to look at the damn data, and so you need to be telling a client the truth about what's happening so that you can find trust, collaboration, and ask critical questions. Then you can critically and quickly resolve issues, iterate, try something else, but tell the truth early and often so that you do create a system, you do create insights, you do create tribal knowledge in regards to how to be better and better and walk in integrity and, inside of that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That reminds me of so I probably wasn't alive during this time, but the commercial, "Where's the beef?"
Yeah.
So is it actual beef? Is it fresh and all of that? That was one of the best moves Wendy's ever made.
Classic. I
Where's the
know.
beef?
I
And it was
know. I was in
beautiful marketing.
elementary school. Yep.
All fresh, never frozen. That was like the entire point because everybody else was freezing it, and that's the thing. Or there wasn't beef in it. I mean, McDonald's had that long stint where it was like what, you could legally call it beef. It was like 73% beef or greater.
Yeah.
It was something along those lines, and the whole laws changed because people found that out. They
Yeah.
figured out what the hell was going on there. And so that's marketing a lie. That was horrible for McDonald's. Their stock tanked. They lost so many customers. They lost a lot of loyalty. People stopped trusting them. I mean, if you look at fast food market in general right now, they have stepped up their game big time. Quality food and then quality service.
Yeah.
It's just a way better experience with way healthier choice. I mean, when I say healthy, I mean it's real food.
Yes.
Not like there's less grease, there's a lot of sodium, all that, but you're eating actual food.
Yes, exactly. 100%. Yes.
For sure. So when you were working with this enterprise company, because you work with SMBs all the way to enterprise.
Yeah.
which
Yep.
you don't find a lot of marketing companies that do that, because it's either they work with SMBs, they work with mid-market, or they work with enterprises, period.
Yep.
It's usually not an array, or large mid-market and small enterprise, somewhere that hovers in between, or small mid-market and large small businesses.
Yeah.
But you're doing the whole array. Is what got you to work that whole array and decide to do that? And when is it time to call it quits with somebody?
Oh gosh. So great question. So I will preface this by saying the approach that we took is complicated and it takes a while to build. But what we end up doing is our specialization is horizontal, if you will, right? So what I mean by that is very early on, we clarified that we were resolving a specific type of problem. It had to do with complex industries selling to extremely smart people, very complicated multi-pronged sales environments, and multiple decision makers. You're building consensus, there's conflicting prioritization, there's change management that has to happen.
My God, it sounds like I need you.
I mean, my gosh, in technology, I mean, that's why we have a deep, set of experience around technology, because there's a lot that's going on the human aspect, on the technology, on the implementation side, on the building value in a business case. I mean, it's a lot. And so we're very good at complicated environments. Sometimes it's in something like engineering that has to work with municipalities, that also has to work with architects, that also has to work with an owner, and then the market, right? So there's lots of agendas happening. And it can happen at all levels, small business as well as enterprise level. So we specialize in sales marketing alignment in incredibly complicated and complex industries and environments.
Right.
Horizontal.
Exactly. That
So,
makes sense. And that reminds me of a book that I am currently reading. It was just passed to me by my director of strategy, and she does a lot of research, market analytics, stuff like that. I'm excited for it. It was written by Christensen, right? It's called The Innovator's Dilemma. It's when new technologies cause great firms to fail, and a
so
management of
good.
innovation and change.
Yes.
This came out in 1995. An updated version came out in 1997. So and then I think a new one after that came out in 1999, updated. But it's showing how when innovations come to surface and a business implements them, it's the change management, and it's getting people to adjust. It's not the technology that fails; it's the people and the process that fail.
Yep. Yep. 100%. I mean, I love that. That's like, there's a book that I just finished reading called The Future is Faster Than You Think. And it's about the convergence of technologies, and whoo, people better get comfortable with change.
Oh yeah, change management's huge, and that's one of the biggest things. And since you help people manage change management, that's another rare quality of a marketing firm. That is not common at all. They just get the engagement up. Okay, conversion is increasing. Often marketing companies don't even measure. Okay, you got this many likes. It got this many impressions, and that's what they're measuring. They're measuring the process, not the outcome. People always seem to forget that marketing is about how many sales happen as the outcome from that marketing content,
That's
not how
right.
many people are interested, because interest doesn't pay the bills unless it's compound interest. And
That's
that's not how
right.
marketing works.
No, and it should extend past, the first time you land a net new client, right? Because if your marketing and your sales process was done effectively, you've set up a system for clients to be delighted, or you've set up a system for them to fail. And change management is a perfect example. So I don't want to overstate our role in that. However, it's appropriate in complicated environments to precede the closing conversation by saying, "Are you ready for this?" To have checklists, to really be talking and painting the future vision of implementation, and to not just be trying to close a deal, but to prepare them for the beginning of their solution, because that's what's happening. Like, making a complicated, cumbersome decision is relief. I mean, thousands of man hours in some decisions go into this. That is a boatload of money and slow down for an organization to actually cross. And most technology decisions, most complicated business to business decisions, get lost in no decision. That is
Yep.
an absolute and utter fail. It's not acceptable for so many human beings to commit so much time and effort on both sides of this solution, this problem solving system, and then for the client to go, it's too much. I'm too overwhelmed. We don't want to do this
It's
anymore.
actually the majority that fail to come to a decision.
It absolutely is. And so that is a failure in service. That's a failure in servant leadership. It's a failure in regards
It's
to
a failure in the
progress.
sale itself, because in
Yes.
in sales, that's called building expectations. If the expectations are not built up front with full transparency and clarity, that the expectations during the deal will fail, and then the entire deal will end up failing post-sale, and it turns into a nightmare or a lawsuit.
That's right. And telling the truth is critical. And it's the simple solution to that, ironically, because you need to be guiding prospective clients through what is your cost of inaction, right? If you don't do anything, is your competition or the coming technology or the disruptions that are potentially on the horizon, are they going to eat you alive? Right? Like you need to be helping them to think and from a visionary standpoint and balancing that with, yes, implementation takes some accountability. It takes the time resource. Here's what you need to know. Here's how to start prepping that so that you're not just going through this linear sales cycle, but that you're stacking preparation and process change for them. You're helping them build consensus. You're helping them to organizationally prepare for a change. Why would they not say yes? They're ready. But if you don't have those tools built in place, if you don't realize that you need to run towards potential problems as early as you possibly can, and that means including operational competence in your sales cycle, well, yeah, of course it's going to go screwy eventually. Like, I mean, and that's the sad part is because there's a lot of great opportunities that are just missed over and over and over, where these companies should be catapulting their success on both sides of the aisle. And instead, it just led to bleh, nothing,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, every call is a discovery call. Every call is a negotiation until after the deal signed, of course. But every call is a negotiation. Every call is a discovery call, and it's even after the sale that it's still a discovery call because you're going to learn more and more every single time, asking the right questions and reiterating on what the process is, reiterating on the value so that they can understand, and giving them the certainty that they need is so important. And that's what marketing is supposed to do, right? Give the
Yes.
certainty. It's supposed to drive certainty, feed the sales team, and build awareness, and awareness that has action taken behind it.
Yes, completely agree. Now, it's interesting because you were talking about spanning SMB to mid market to enterprise. The one caveat I will say about enterprise is the scope is limited, right? Because to have cultural impact and to be
Oh
able to
yeah.
change.
It's like a horse with blinders on it. They can only see dead straight. And my
Yep.
God, if they turn to the left, everything else falls off. They
Yep.
can't see anything in front of them anymore. If they turn to the right, they can't see anything in front of them anymore. And it just turns into a whole mess. So you have to just turn their head ever so slightly so they can see a little bit more. And then
Yes.
they can focus on the main goal. And then it's just slowly, slowly, slowly pulling the reins so so the horse starts moving. Otherwise, it'll panic.
Progress.
It'll panic. It'll start kicking. It doesn't know what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah, and,
Yes.
what is the biggest nightmare that you've ever had working with enterprises? You don't have to use names, but
Right.
where did it end up going? How did that turn out?
So one big one was we had gotten one enterprise client into LinkedIn. We had done two really big things in convincing them and collaborating with them about where the future needed to be headed. Number one, we helped convince them that they really needed to focus value and education, attention, time, money on this up and coming generation of business or decision makers. And so that's hard, right?
You had to talk them into that?
We did. And so it's so exciting. So,
Oh,
we explained like, I know this is 10 years out, but they were a legacy brand. I mean, obviously
okay,
enterprise,
that makes sense.
it's so, but we're saying, your market share is being eaten away right now. And it's kind of like the boiled frog, like you put
And
a
they don't
frog in
know
cold
until
water.
they've lost, like, 30% of it and go, "Oh, shit, what happened?" Then it's too late.
That's right. Exactly. So their market share was being eroded, but they were still fat and happy. But it was being eroded like a boiled frog scenario. And we knew that. A couple of their really smart leaders knew that and change agents in there. And so we were able to talk to them and we were saying, this has been coming for a long time. Like you should have seen it coming. And here's why. Something that you did as a legacy brand early in your career to nurture the market you are no longer doing. And so we returned them, but actually to their brand roots. And it felt great. It was so exciting. It was the right thing to do, but it can be very challenging. I mean, this is a publicly traded company, very challenging to get them to think past this quarter or this year, this fiscal year. So
Yep,
that was
they're
a huge
focused on the
win.
now. It's always the short-term thinking, and it's all about shareholder value. It's not about creating a lot of change, because if they do, the shareholder value can fluctuate, and then all of the board and the major investors are going to quite literally, excuse my language, shit a brick.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So we got him over that hurdle. We got him onto LinkedIn. And this is back before LinkedIn was this huge, big thing. But, and we got him on YouTube thinking, okay, it's about relationship, it's about value. So, I mean, like these big, huge wins way before all of this stuff was
It,
cool.
it must have been like what, 2015, 2016 then.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Uh-huh. And so super, super exciting. And it's working. Like the data is showing it's working. The sales team is showing it's working. They're getting qualitative feedback at their presentations, at their public engagements from the public part of their stakeholders about, wow, what you guys are doing is so exciting. This is fantastic. And when we got to the planning for the following year, we're showing everybody and we're saying, here's the gaps, here's where we go. And they killed it all, anyways. And they were looking us straight in the eyes, saying, we know it worked. We appreciate it. It was awesome. And basically, we don't care. Like, we're going to go back and focus on other things. And the could have beens, you know what I
I would
mean?
have been livid.
And yeah, and you just, and that is part of like giving it all. Is sometimes it's going to happen. People are not always logical. It doesn't always go your way. And
Well,
that was
the worst type of work is the thankless work.
yeah.
There's so many business environments where you don't get a thank you, you don't get any praise, you get nothing, no compliments. It's an expectation. Sure, it's an expectation to perform, but overperforming and continuously doing a good job deserves a thank you, a genuine one at that. And I could see how that would really deter you from one. It was thankless work, and then they're going to revert.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you a really fast story, like in addition, just because, um, and that's not on enterprise level, because I think it might be insightful for some of your listeners, is we had another scenario where we were doing brand building and we were doing a brand evolution, not a revolution, but still really significant.
Mhm.
And it was around the leaders were, there was some succession planning, right? Like the CEO was going to retire. Everybody knew that this was having to do with preparing for that. And so the CEO said, no, I don't want to be a part of all of this. It's fine. This is the new era. It's okay. But then he eventually came in and sniped everything that we did. And it really ended up hurting them a year later when the market changed. And that was another one, and where you're
What
like,
was it? Was it a yeah? We're not doing this anymore.
well, it was he didn't like the change. It wasn't the company that he founded.
Oh no, that's the
Um,
worst when the visionary or the person who started the company. This is why, by the way, this is why companies who take professional investment or VC investment, when it's what you want it to be, and you try to control the brand because it's what the way that you see it, you are going to get fired as the CEO as fast as possible, and you will tank the company single-handed. You
yep,
need to be open to the change. Your brand, your product should be what the people consuming it want it to be, because how they consume it is how they want to consume it. How they see it is the way that they want to see it. You can only suggestively change the brand to where you want it or give it that type of a feel that it brings out your personality. But the whole point is that ultimately the consumer or the buyer is the one who controls your brand, whether you like it or not, because people buy from people that they like, trust, and can relate to. There is that factor, but the brand and the product is going to be controlled by them. It's not what you want. It's not what you want them to have. It's not what you think they need. It's what they need, but also kind of delivered in a way to have them think that it's what they want, because what they need usually is not what they need. What they think they need is actually what they want. So you give them what they want, and then also give them a nice healthy dose of what they need with what they want.
Yeah.
And then it's how they want to see it, how they want to use it. It has nothing to do with how you think they should, because what you think is irrelevant. No one cares what you think.
That's right.
Because whose ideas are the best ideas?
That's right.
Your
It's
own.
how you're perceived. I mean, it's very simple, and you have to meet people where they are. You are under the curse of knowledge because you know what's possible. You know how to get them to a new place, but they don't know that yet. And so you have to meet them exactly where they are. You can't accelerate that. You can't judge them for that. And if they don't believe
Anything
that,
innovative is breaking someone's paradigm often.
yes, exactly. And if they don't believe what you say about yourself, guess what? What they believe is your truth. And you have to like figure out how to navigate that positioning, but you can't just be like, I don't like it, because you are exactly right. Like it's not going to go well. And so that was one, where you're like, oh, worthy company, exciting possibilities, and somebody wasn't ready for change. And it wasn't that he was a bad guy, like he wasn't trying to cause harm to his successor, nothing like that. But we took him at his word that he didn't want to be a part of the process, but he was able to unravel it all, like paper cut by paper cut, death by 10,000 paper cuts. And that was a tough one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does get difficult, and I mean, we've had issues as well with some people that we've worked with where there was no willingness to change. Same exact process, all data backed, insight driven predictions, and they just didn't follow any. They just did the same exact thing they were doing before. They had the data, they had the predictions, they had all that stuff, but then same exact process, same exact outreach methodology, same exact sales process, same exact automation crap, and then it all just not. We haven't had any benefits because you haven't done anything differently.
That's
You're
right.
just you're smarter, but then you're not applying the knowledge.
Yes.
Therefore, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome, that is textbook insanity.
100%. Well, and I mean, any marketer that's ever done any significant digital marketing testing will tell you how surprising results are sometimes. And you might have done very good, like legitimately good work on buyer persona insights and market research, but humans are still human. And especially when it comes down to like the specifics, sometimes things just don't work how you think they're going to, or I mean, like your blind spot is hidden somewhere, in your creative execution or whatever. So I
But the
mean, like
reason
the
it's a
data.
blind spot is why? Because you are blind to it,
Yes.
right? So that
Yes.
people need to be more open to waking up to it and listening to the experts. Where if you're not an expert in the space, don't assume you are. Don't say, "Oh no, I know better because I own it." You don't. You don't. I don't.
I
I'm not that.
agree.
I'm not a great marketer. I'm great at writing content, but when it comes to actual marketing and execution, I have no idea how to get someone to click something. That's not my expertise. I have no freaking clue. Yeah, I'll be the first one to say it. It doesn't make much sense to me. It's not the way I think because I'm a logical thinker, not an emotional thinker. So I don't understand why people make emotional decisions when they buy, because I'm that type of guy who looks at like the cost per ounce and then does the math. Like that type of a thing.
You
What is the
need
value?
to.
What are the ingredients? What's it made of? How was it produced? I'm looking at all that stuff, which is totally in left field for everybody else.
Yeah.
But I had somebody on the podcast. It's the episode before this one that's going to be releasing, or maybe two before, one or the other. But Tommy, he is a soon to be partner with us, another big data guy. He's been in marketing forever. And data backed decisions, all that stuff. We're going to be integrating technology. It's going to be awesome. But what he said about marketing, I thought was smart, is that there's no such thing as an expert marketer. That's not real. Those are the people who are a sham. There are expert testers in the market. And
Yeah.
an expert marketer is actually an expert tester. There are people who are experts at marketing, but there is no such thing as an expert marketer. It's a testers, because it could be anything, but you iterate, test until it starts working. But then you keep testing from there to improve, because there is no perfect fit in the market. Because a business quarter from now, that may not work anymore because trends are changing, people are changing, businesses are changing.
So true. And I love how he's putting that, because it's also one of the reasons why I love the kind of insights that you guys are capable of delivering, because a great marketer follows their curiosity, has an insatiable curiosity about why are people doing that? What are they thinking? Like, how is this going to work? And you just keep following the market's lead, right? And I mean,
You got to
and
speak their language, right?
yes, and it
Um,
should apply to innovation. It should apply to, evolutions in your product and your services, your value adds. Like, you listen, pay attention, watch what's happening, because it's the only way that you'll stay ahead, is being insatiably curious. So I completely agree with what he's
would
saying.
you also agree that marketing is a conversation, even if it's just something for them to look at, like an ad that they click or whatever it may be? That's the start of a conversation. It goes deeper and deeper, but it's not like a linear conversation. It's not me and you talking right now where it's back and forth, but there's gaps and delays in between, and then it's building reliability. It's building trust, and it's building awareness around an issue. It's helping drive value, and it's helping being very relevant,
Yes.
relevant and timely to build quality, trust, quality assurance that it's going to be something good, reliability, and trust.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because for all of our clients, we do a sales mapping exercise in order to create transparency about the buyer's going through something that's very different than the seller is going through, that's very different sometimes than the marketer is going through. And we want to be able to visualize that so that we can legitimately be customer centric in our communication. And so, to your point, the thing that we teach is that everybody knows that the outcome of a successful selling process or buyer's journey is a sale. It's a closed deal. And so that's an exchange, right? You are exchanging service or product, but basically value for money. That's an exchange. But there's two other exchanges that you need to bring light on and be incredibly intentional around. And the first is attention. And that's the real name of the game nowadays. Attention is incredibly difficult to get and expensive to get in this busy day and age. But our words even tell on ourselves, right? Like, we legitimately ask people to pay attention. It's an exchange. It's a conversation. It's back and forth. Like, if someone's paying, then you're literally saying, well, that means they're receiving something. So if you think about your marketing, are you giving them something worthy of payment? And even if your attention is only 3 to 4 seconds, like Google says, or less than 9 seconds, like other people say, or 160 characters, you are in an exchange. You are in a two-way back and forth. And the data is the feedback, but they are engaging inside of their own head. They are having a conversation. So
Yeah.
the first is that attention exchange. And then the second is the time exchange. Once you get their attention, they start to invest time, which is a non-renewable resource. And so then it's the same thing. Our words telling ourselves, again, we literally ask people to spend time. So it's supposed to, I should say, hold us accountable for giving something significant when we receive something they can never get back. So to tell the truth early and often, set them up for success, educate them, bring that change management conversation into the sales, because they can never get that time back. And so that exchange should be happening constantly, because you're teaching them in action that you will always honor an exchange, that you will always be focused on value. And that is the definition of being customer centric. It's not about being customer centric after you issue an invoice. And so, thank you
But then
for
that's a
that
whole
about the
different thing on its
conversation, because
own, where
it's
you
so
should be,
true.
but that's not marketing. So I've got a couple things here. Is that when someone goes onto a web page, you have 3 to 5 seconds before they just drop off, they bounce. So you have to get their attention within that time period, because they have to see, okay, what's this about? Doesn't seem interesting. Bye. See you later. With ads on YouTube or wherever else it may be, Snapchat, if you're going to like the main feeds, the global feeds, stuff like that,
Anywhere.
there are 3 seconds until they could skip that ad. On average, it is just a fraction over 3 seconds that you have their attention, and you better have made enough of an impact where they're going to start thinking about it after they skip, or they're interested enough, which is very rare, to watch the whole thing, because they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need to hear right now.
Yes.
Not going to happen most of the time. So it's about leaving that 3-second impact. But they have the 33-30 rule, right? You have 30 seconds to capture them, right? So you have 3 seconds to get their attention. You have 30 seconds to capture them.
Keep it.
You have 3 minutes for them to actually get the pitch and understand what's going on if they're interested in the other 2 3s, right? And then you have the 30-minute version. Is that enough to get them into a place where they are willing to sit through a 30-minute meeting to actually listen to the value, have a conversation, a discussion, and try to solve a problem?
Yeah, I love it. Like I've never heard that exact like phrasing, but I agree, because the thing about that rule, if you will, is that it challenges you to embrace constraints. If you only have 3 seconds, how do you go be awesome in 3 seconds? And guess what? It is possible. Like it is totally possible. Hint, like here's the little hack. Don't talk about yourself. Always talk to people about them.
It's always
So
about
simple.
them.
So simple. So
No one
there's your
should
hack.
give a single shit about you.
That's
ever.
right. There's your $100,000 piece of advice that can change your trajectory is talk to them about them. But you know, that constraint.
Like if I started,
forces you to
how about this? If I started this whole thing with like, hey, so you know how I went directly into you at the beginning of this podcast? Perfect example. Hey, my name's Rob Turley. I'm your host at about 3 seconds right there. That's what it is. And then I went directly into you. If I started going, oh yeah, I have a background. So I went to Rochester Institute of Technology. I originally majored in graphic design. I had a minor in advertising, PR, so advertising, PR, communications, business psychology, and then started going to the whole thing. I used to work in custom development, but blah, blah, blah. Every single listener of this podcast would have dropped off like a bad habit.
Exactly. Exactly.
Who
Exactly.
wants that?
But you know, if you say to somebody, what if I could show you how to add a couple of points in EBITDA by the end of next year?
Yeah, how many people even know what EBITDA is?
Well, hopefully on this podcast, lots of them.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true because the listenership of this podcast is mostly VPs and above.
Yes, exactly. So I'm pretty sure your folks do.
Well, that's it's a niche. It's a niche that we're working with here. So that's yeah, it's interesting. But there's so many times, even people who are VPs, I've mentioned that I stopped using that in my language because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Never heard of the term.
Yeah. But you know, if I, you know, but I mean, but this whole point still goes back to talk to them about them, or, you know, that problem that you're solving, you're not alone, you know, or it's worse than you
And
think.
not selling to the neocortex, which is the logic brain, is important. All they use the logic part of the brain for is making the judgment call. So to actually ensue judgment on whatever their emotional decision was.
That
You're
is
not
correct.
alone. This is something that will benefit you in this way, something like that. How is this going to affect them personally, their business personally? How does it make them feel? And then they judge their emotional decision based off of the logic to justify. They just use logic to justify an emotional decision. That is how humans work.
You are 100% right.
In the, I think it's about 0.5% of people don't do that. I'm one of those because I'm a cold-hearted, analytical son of a bitch. Maybe that's why I'm damn good at what I do.
Yeah, I am not. I am the opposite. But being an awareness about it, and it's also why we teach people about neuroscience and behavioral economics, because you're so right. You know, the brain makes decisions based on emotion. The limbic brain, the limbic system, is in charge
And
of
that
emotion.
right there, so people who don't know what it is,
Period.
that is the primal brain. Primal.
Yep. And it makes all of the decisions. And what the limbic system is not in charge of is it's not in charge of communication, and it's not in charge of logic. That's a processing system that happens after we've already made decisions.
It's in charge of things that are involuntary, like reactions.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
involved with things such as sexual attraction,
Yep.
hormonal, hormone excretion.
Yep.
It's in charge of involuntary things like vomiting. It's in charge of you got horny and you can't control it. Like it's those things where you're just like, it's what makes us the animal, right?
That's right. And that controls our decisions. And that's super
Whether you like it or
important to
not. And it's
understand.
subconscious. So you can't say, no, it doesn't, because I don't think that way. Guess what, buddy? It is, because it is quite literally what makes you human.
Yeah.
There's just some people who have less, which is rare. Then there's some people who have way more, which is not as rare. Then there's people that sit in the middle where it's both.
Yes.
And that's where pretty much 99% of everybody sits.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. The book Predictably Irrational is so brilliant. If anybody out there
I've never read that.
it, oh, you'll love it. And then, you know, I mean, following Daniel Kahneman's work, and there's so many of them, but oh my gosh, absolutely brilliant. All the research that really gave that aha moment, publicly to the world about, wow, we're not actually logical. I mean, just
No,
it's
no. Emotion
fascinating.
is the exact opposite of logic. If we're making decisions based off of emotion, we are illogical beings.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
just that. That's why data is so important in marketing, in sales, and in business, because it is the one thing that is the single point of truth, is that the data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
If you have good models, if you can actually analyze it properly, do the proper math, and I mean, in our case, the proper predictions, there is no argument. It
Yeah.
is what it is. And whether you accept it or not, that's either denial or acceptance. The end. There is no argument to be had, because if the data says it, it's true. There is no judgment call. There is no bias. I mean, data is inherently biased because it was put there by humans, but that bias is the human bias that needs to be seen in the first place.
And that's the thing, is it will take you back up the value chain if you allow it to, because what happens is if you lay cards on the table, which is what data does, then it allows you as humans to go, now what are we going to do about it? And the critical thinking part of our brain, the collaboration, the creativity, the innovation, like how are we going to use this information to achieve our goals or serve people better or change? That's the highest and best use of our creative faculties, but you do have to have some things in place, data points that you can trust, so that you're not just wallowing around in the mire over and over and over, or constantly asking the same low level questions. Get them answered. Use technology in order to shed light on some murky areas in your business or in your communication or whatever, and then allow it to provoke more exciting, more difficult questions.
I
So,
love how you brought that up too, because humans are good at a couple things. The other thing should be done by machines, but it's empathy, communication, creativity, innovation, inventiveness, right?
yep.
And then also, oh, I forgot one of them. I forgot one of them. It starts with an I. Oh, but yeah, I'll think of it like 3 hours from now when it's irrelevant, and then I'll text you or something.
I get it.
That's how it works.
You're gonna have me guessing eyes in a minute. I'm like, ooh, I wonder what it was. Definitely text me.
Will do. Will do.
But
No, this is
yeah,
exciting though. Okay, so question for you is that when you have been marketing for these companies that you're working with, especially companies with complex or sophisticated sales, where there's a lot of different layers to it, when you're trying to educate the market, sometimes educating the market's not the best idea. Where you don't go down that route, and I know you know this. It's like that with us almost, where it's almost not worth educating them about what it's changing. It's about educating them about what it's touching
yep,
or what it's affecting.
yep. You need to give them the information that actually serves them, and some information just doesn't. Like, the more advanced we get societally, and each one of our niches, each one of our specialties just goes too deep to take everybody along with us. So, like, for instance, an AI company that I worked with a number of years ago, we were talking, and I realized, I said to them, you need to talk to people about being AI ready. Like, come up with a phrase that people can understand, and it's talk to them about what they have to have in place. Do they have enough data sets that AI can actually learn from? And and I know this is really elementary, for the guys that were building the systems and the machine learning. However, that's actually how to serve people, because nobody really wants to know how the machine works. It's too much. Like, it's
No,
too
no one
overwhelming.
cares. The eyes glaze
I don't
over.
want to know.
They
I want
don't
to
know what you're
know.
talking about in about 30 seconds. They've totally checked out mentally. It's done.
Yes, exactly. So I want to know, what's the outcome. I want to know, how would we implement that, and what
Apply
do I?
application of, and that's something we learned the hard way. You need to tell them, so what is it? Why did you build it? How is it relevant to me?
Yeah.
How do I apply this to my business? And what outcomes will I get? Anything beyond that scope is irrelevant.
Yep. Yep.
Unless they're an
Completely.
enthusiast. That's when it's different. Or if they're an expert.
And that's right. And that is different, because you are, sometimes in different selling environments, you'll go through a technical review, or you do have a collaborator that is an expert on the other side of the aisle and is going to be your
Oh
implementation
God,
partner.
that's like the greatest day ever for us.
I know, exactly. And then you get to go have fun. Like, the things, but I mean, if it doesn't serve somebody, so you're 100% right. Give the right information to the right people.
Yeah, and when it comes to that, what it's like, how is it applied? For that AI company that you were working with, what was the application? And I like how you said data ready, because it's something we had to figure out too the hard way, is that do you people go, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I have enough data. Or they make the assumption I don't have enough data. I don't think we're ready for this when they are. But then once they've made that decision, that is the decision. It is a total brick wall from that point on.
Yep.
There is no talking them into it. So it's keeping them out of making their own assumptions and keeping them out of that headspace. What did you do to try to get around that gap? And this is not only to AI companies, this applies to any company that has a very sophisticated product.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Well, in regards to like what was the outcome or what was the actual scenario, there were a couple. Like, I mean, because in the beginning, it was about finding the right market that was capable of taking this on. Because it started with they wanted to tell everybody AI's coming, you better be ready. But actually, at the end of the day, people are looking at their industry being like, but not today. Like, I believe that conceptually, but not today, and then narrowing in on the people that were really understood that, and then identifying, okay, so they get it. They're sufficiently nervous about their competitors getting there first. Okay, but they don't understand where in the business AI should be going. Okay, so now we've got to really simplify the application, and so then when they started getting clear about the outcomes in the application, then it was this is too much. We don't want to do this right now. So interestingly enough, like I'm overly simplifying, but it was these tiny, tiny little like, micro cuts that you had to make where you would go, okay, we took a step. Now let's look at that one again. Okay, let's take another step. And then but to your point, you have to listen.
I
To
literally
what
live that.
saying.
And you're describing it perfectly, is that it's these little steps. It's these little tiny stepping stones in between the stepping stones because they're just too far to cross, where people go, I don't know if I can make that jump, even though they could. But I don't know. I don't know if I can make that far of a jump. So I'm just going to back off and wait for somebody else to build a bridge. I'm going to wait for somebody else to add the other stepping stones to it.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is that there's fear along each gap. As soon as you solve one of them, where they say, I don't think I'm ready. Solved, great. I don't think my team can handle that new process. Solved, great. I don't think it's something that we could sustain because we don't have the expertise in the team. Solved, great. I don't think this is something that would make sense at this time because of X, Y, and Z going on in the business.
Yeah.
Solved. And then this the next thing, one thing after another, after another, after another. If I had $1 for every time someone said, I don't think we're ready for AI.
Yeah. Well, and we, we end up having to even pivot our markets at one point because we were able to solve all those thin slices until it came to user adoption. And so we were able to cut through the adoption, the buy-in, the how, the readiness, the change management. But then the change management at the end of the day hit a plateau where the user of the technology didn't actually care about the improved results, didn't care. Like,
it's because the people who are using it are not the people who are running the business. They're the people who are doing their job. And it's like, well, I don't want to have to add an extra step. I don't want to have to do this other work.
That's right.
I don't want to have to learn. I just want a paycheck and I want to go home because that's why I'm here.
That's right. And we tried so much messaging around improve your
that's the problem with the
portfolio.
leadership.
Yep. Like, what's in it for me? Improve your portfolio. You are going to be able to tote these benefits. I mean, all of this stuff. And they still didn't care. And if somebody doesn't care, you are screwed. And so literally,
you can't, just like they said, you cannot pay someone to care.
Yep.
You can pay them and they still wouldn't care.
Yep, exactly. In the long path, we end up pivoting one of our markets. We literally just shut one off. We were like, it doesn't matter how impactful this can be. They don't want it. And so,
That's when you have to
now is hard.
Did you try selling to the convenience?
Yes. And it didn't work in some other things in other markets we're working where we just went, all right, we'll come back to y'all later, but this is getting exhausting, because there's only so many hours in the day. And at some point in time, you simply have to prioritize your resources. And so that's what we did. Yeah.
Right. And then it's sub-education too, where you're teaching them about other things that are tied to it, where you make them aware of other problems that are directly affected by it, but it seems very indirect, like it's a total disconnect.
Yep.
That's what we have to try. We started doing that too.
Nice.
Where it's like, well, if you're having this problem, it's usually because of this, 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 and this. And then the root of that problem is actually this.
Yes.
And they go, oh, I can see how this is okay. But even though, it's a whole, it's almost like a network, like a web of problems that all surface from this one thing. The web is connected at tons of different points where there's an issue, but that is a symptom. It's not the problem itself. It's not
That's
the
right.
source.
That's right.
Finding the source, but teaching them that it is a source, where the source is coming from, instead of the symptoms. You get deeper and deeper into the symptoms, and they assume about halfway deep, maybe 3/4 of the way deep, that that is the source of the problem. There's multiple, when really it's one or two in the center.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. And that's a journey for people. And so, especially in these complicated scenarios, you have to be willing to go through that journey multiple times with people because that's how you get them to truly advance. And that kind of goes back
Repetition.
to our early conversation is you've got to care deeply enough. You cannot be in a hurry. Sometimes you have to slow down in order to speed up. And this is a perfect example because ironically, you can even accelerate your sales cycles as long as you are focused on deliberate agile problem solving inside of the sales cycle. And so it might sound cumbersome, but actually it's much more aggressive because you are totally focused on what they need in order
Yeah,
to move forward.
you
And if
should
they are not ready, you'll
always
tell
be
them as
doing that.
quickly as possible.
I,
That's right.
I couldn't agree more. Our sales team is trained. Our affiliates, our resellers are trained to help solve a problem during the sales team. Because what if you're speaking to a high level executive? If you're just pitching them a product, if you're product and feature selling, that is the saddest, most pathetic excuse of a sale.
The
No
pitch
one
is
buys
dead.
a product. Everybody's got features. I've got features. You've got features. We all got features. Whoop de doo. And they all do something similar. They might sound like they do something the same as something else. And that's when someone goes with an alternative, adjacent competitors, because they don't know what the hell it is that they need or what they want. They're going based off of what they know, which is what everybody's going to do. Make that
That's right.
assumption. So it's about helping them understand what it is that you're helping them with and helping them solve that problem. Solution selling is not selling a solution. Solution selling is helping to solve a problem or problems.
Yeah.
And if you can't
100%.
help solve a problem when working with a C-suite executive or
Tell
a
the truth.
VP or whatever it is, they are not interested in anything you have to say, because what is their objective? What is their job? A CEO's job, a VP's job is to solve everybody else's problem, because it goes up like a pyramid.
That's right.
If everybody who is a base level employee has this problem, they can't fix it, they send it up to their managers. Managers can't solve the problem, can't fix it, they send it up to the directors. Directors can't solve them, they can't fix it, it goes up to the VP. VP can't solve it, they can't fix it, it goes up to a C-suite. C-suite can't fix it, there's nowhere up to go from there, so they have to hire out.
Yes.
But then it's about helping them solve that problem, because if it's a problem that they cannot solve, that is every reason to buy the solution for it.
Yes. 100%. Could not agree more. Could not agree more. It's got to be practical. Yep. Absolutely.
Practicality is huge. I mean, think about it. When you were younger, you wanted all this, these gifts from people. I mean, think about Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it may be, birthdays. You wanted all these gifts that would, be this really cool kind of luxurious thing that didn't really have a purpose. There was nothing really behind it. Then as soon as you hit, I feel like it's your 20s, you're just like, someone gives you something like that and you're like, oh, I can't even use this. This is stupid. Why would I want this? Return it, get something. But then you get like a blender, and you've needed a blender forever because yours just broke. You're just like, oh my
So
God,
excited.
this is amazing.
I know, right? Yes, exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah, one of the best gifts I was ever given was a diamond, like a diamond coated whetstone for sharpening knives. Amazing. It was like the greatest thing. You gave me that when I was like 15, 16. I'd be like, what the hell is this? What am I going to use this for?
That's a good one. Yes, that's so cool but it had to show up at the right time.
How did it show? I mean, I don't know. I think I was complaining that my knives were dull one day. And I was like, I can't stand it. I got to buy a new knife set, but I really like this knife set. They've gone dull. I might have been complaining about it. And someone's like, I know exactly what they need, a Japanese whetstone.
So cool.
Yeah, like a what, 6,000 grit Japanese whetstone, and it was just a beautiful thing. And you actually get it wet, and you're shaving away on it, and it's really therapeutic to be sharpening. So it's like a nice, like almost like a meditative experience. So
that is so cool. Yes.
What is your favorite practical gift that you've ever gotten?
Oh my gosh, that I've ever gotten. Oh, this one's going to be difficult.
And I'm sorry, my New York almost came out. I said that you've gotten.
I don't know. I actually, this is not going to sound practical. It was a massage. I love work. I love people. I have a lot of energy, and I really struggle to remember that I need to recharge and I need to shut it down. And so, and it's always hindsight's 2020, right?
How
So
quickly you can forget though. It's
yeah,
when you're working the whole time, you forget to take care of yourself, but if you don't take care of the engine, the car won't run.
yes, 100%. And so ironically, I know that sounds indulgent, but it
It's
was
not.
so absolutely on point for where I was in my life, you know, what I needed. And my husband was like, you need to stop. Like, and he got me like you know, like a series of them that forced me to do that. And oh my gosh, it was wonderful. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I subscribe to it. I get them biweekly. I need
that's
to.
awesome.
I sit at a desk for 18 hours a day. I mean, come on.
Yes,
If
I
you
know.
don't do that, you're going to be crippled by the time you're like 60.
That's right.
It's not
Exactly.
going to work.
No, exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. And self-care, I'll make a point of that, is extremely important. It's not being selfish, and selfishness is not a bad thing. It's been misdefined and mislabeled by people who don't like people who don't exactly make everything not about them. It's not about you when you're selling, when you're doing business, all that stuff, but it really is about you because again, you're the engine of the car and your body's the car. If the engine dies, then the whole car dies with it.
that's
If
right.
parts you don't let your brakes just go.
That's
You
right.
know, that's not a thing. So you got to take care of yourself. And selfishness is not bad. Self-conceitedness is.
Yes. Yeah.
Being
I,
selfish is
completely.
taking care of yourself and putting yourself first, which is important because you can't help others unless you've helped yourself.
Exactly.
Self-conceitedness, that is self-obsession.
Yeah.
That's different.
I agree. I completely agree. You've got to focus on your highest and best use. And that comes from self care because you can't be good to other people if you're not in a stable, satisfied place.
It's that age-old thing. You can't love someone until you love yourself.
That's right. That's right. That's why it's age old.
Right? Exactly. Love it. So we are pretty much on time here. So this is great. Fantastic conversation. I think that was a strong ending to help people, just kind of think about what it is that they're doing. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on. It was incredible. What's
This
the
was
best place for people to find you?
thank you for asking. Well, the wonderful thing about my name is there's not a lot. Actually, there's no other Dacia coffees out there. So DACIA. So you can find me on any social media channels quite easily. I also have a website at that for speaking. I have a book coming out at the end of the year. So anybody that's looking for their individual impact, Dacia Coffee. And then if anybody's curious about the free resources that we have, I'm the CEO of the Marketing Blender. So themarketingblender.com.
Awesome. Perfect. So thank you so much again. And everybody, thank you for listening. I know that there's a tiny gap in my podcast that I was releasing, but you know what? Sometimes things get wild in your life. So yeah, we're back on track here again and loved it. So again, this is Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. If you want to hashtag us, it's hashtag DTRH podcast. I'd be very thankful if you did. Tag me if you post about it. Tag me if you like it. Share it with your friends and family. It's on virtually every single streaming platform from iHeartRadio to Spotify to Apple Podcasts and wherever else. It's pretty much everywhere. So give it a listen there or go to podcasts.whiterabbitintel.com. And again, this is sponsored by White Rabbit Intel. You guessed it. So sales enablement and sales intelligence, artificial intelligence that enables you to know more, win more, and close often by understanding who you sell to, how you sell to them, and predicting which people are the best fit to build a relationship with human to human before you speak to them. Thank you so much and have a fantastic night. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Down the Rabbit Hole podcast for new episodes weekly on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, and YouTube. If you'd like to apply to be featured on the podcast or recommend a featured guest, please feel free to email us at theteam@whiterabbitintel.com.